All right, hello everyone, and welcome to our second session of the Road to the Metaverse Creator Series. Today we're going to showcase the fundamentals of bringing your digital and physical assets into Unity. My name is Drew Demokas, and I'll be your MC for the session. I joined Unity in 2020 as a creator and developer advocate, focused on showing businesses how AR and VR can solve problems and modernize old processes. Now let's meet our hosts, starting with Jerome.
Hey everyone, I'm Jerome. I'm a senior technical specialist here based in London, UK. I spent about 2 decades building interactive user experiences across web, XR installations, mobile, and embedded devices. I joined Unity back in 2018, but I started using Unity all the way back to 2009. And Ben?
I am Ben Radcliffe. I'm also a senior technical specialist based out of London. I've been with Unity going on 4 years. I started as Jerome's intern and apprentice, and now I'm all grown up. But before this, I was 20 years in visual effects, animation, location-based entertainment, and I caught the VR, AR bug and came and worked at Unity. So hello, everyone.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. So as you can see here, we have today's agenda on display. So following a quick introduction, we'll dive into today's main topic, bringing digital and physical assets into Unity. So we aim to cover the main topic in about 45 minutes or so, but we're also going to be available for Q&A following the main session, as well as some overtime to go into more depth or catch up on anything we may have missed during those first 45 minutes. So before we get started, if you have any questions at all during the session, please type them into the Q&A pod on Zoom. And this session is going to be recorded, and the on-demand version of the webinar will be made available in a few weeks. We're also looking for feedback on this presentation. So we have a survey link at the QR code that you can see on the screen now, as well as at a link that I'm going to pop in a chat just a second. We really want to learn from you, so please fill out the survey when you get the chance following today's session. Just keep that tab open on the side and fill it out once we're done. So before we dive in, I'd also like to highlight a few metaverse stories from industry leaders that both showcase the power of digital twins and are helping to move the metaverse forward. First up, let's take a look at Rezzil's training app. So athletes often review game footage to work out what they can do better. And Rezzil takes this game footage and makes it into an experience. Manchester City is the first football club to adopt Rezzil's training app for fans. So now fans can participate in training sessions at the stadium, creating a completely new experience for sports and live entertainment. Additionally, professional sports are extremely demanding on the human body. So with Rezzil's digital training tools, professional athletes can still participate in rigorous training exercises, but without the physical strain. Over time, this could increase the longevity of athletes and help reduce injuries as well. Next up, Samsung is committed to creating a virtual replica of its New York store. So customers will be able to enter through their web browser and enjoy 3 new experiences called the Connectivity Theater, the Sustainability Forest, and the Customization Stage. And having widespread adoption of virtual shopping experiences like this one will make for better and more engaging online shopping. It can also help rehabilitate and innovate the traditional brick-and-mortar retail industry. And now finally for today, Fetal Heart VR is a teaching tool for sonographers and physicians involved in prenatal sonography. It allows medical professionals to fully simulate the maneuvers of an ultrasound probe, perform a virtual scan, and better understand the signs of congenital heart defects during an ultrasound examination. So VR is really a massive boon for medical training and education, and we've really only just begun tapping into what's possible with AR and VR. Now it can improve the practice of medical professionals around the world. We're looking forward to seeing more healthcare applications, especially when it comes to understanding rare or difficult to diagnose conditions. So we'll be covering more stories focused on metaverse creators and their creations during future sessions. But if you'd like to know more, please check out the Metaverse Minute blog post, the QR code and link here. But with that, I'll hand things off to Ben and Jerome to show you how to bring your digital and physical assets into Unity. So take it away, guys.
Welcome everyone to bring your digital and physical assets into Unity in today's session. First, let's look at the case where you don't have any assets, actually. That might be the case. You're starting fresh with Unity, and we wanted to give you some resources for you to get started easily and acquire content if you don't have any readily available. So first up is the Unity Asset Store. You can find a lot of resources there, from 3D assets, 2D textures, all the way to plugins, code helpers, and things like that. A lot of them are free. There's literally thousands of free assets. There's a little tick box here, where the little hand is, which allow you to filter by free assets. And Ben, I know you really like this Polygon starter pack.
I love all the Cinti stuff. Jerome knows that. Me and Jerome do a ton of XR workshops, getting people started with XR, and that free Polygon starter pack is our go-to one. We have big customers. We take them in there. We can put gravity, colliders, grab balls, throw them. We had that big orange ball, that big yellow ball. We had it bouncing in the sky. We made it 10 times too big, and it was bouncing off the ground, and we were dodging it in VR one time. So I highly recommend that.
That was both terrifying and fun. Other resources which I highly recommend, obviously Sketchfab, millions of assets available. A lot of them are free also, everything from like GLTF files to FBX. There's a really wide variety of model types. For engineering focused use cases, GrabCAD is also a brilliant resource with millions of CAD models with various file formats. So if you want to test, for example, a pipeline with a specific CAD format, it's probably a good chance you can find it on GrabCAD. Most of them are free. Actually, I think everything is free for people to use. I found some really nice models like chairs, and there's some brilliant, for example, a bicycle, which was really fantastically created. And then finally here on this slide is GitHub. We have Unity Technologies, the technical marketing team, but also our colleague from Japan, Kijiro, have tons of open source packages which contain assets or samples that you can use in your projects.
And if you don't know Kijiro, follow him on Twitter. He's a super genius from our Japan office. I'll be showing some of his stuff from GitHub later today. Follow him on Twitter @_KZR. He's amazing.
It's a gold mine. More free assets, the measure material library. So these are about 300 sample materials available in our universal render pipeline and high definition render pipeline for you to use. They're actually using shader graphs, so you can modify them to customize even the shaders themselves to suit your needs. But we have tons of available samples from suede, for example, different leathers, metals, wood, and car paint. There's very multiple complexity of car paints, one, for example, for URP or when you target WebGL, and others for HDRP. If you want to go into ray tracing or path tracing, you can get some really nice car paint materials out of this free sample library available open source on GitHub. Right, so these are well for finding some free assets. Obviously, there's a ton of other resources you can go through, but these were the ones we wanted to highlight because they're not necessarily obvious. And getting your data into Unity can be quite overwhelming. There are a lot of options. With most things Unity, I know there's memes going around the internet of, Unity is a complex tool because there's many options when you start a new project, but there's also options when you import assets. This is due to the fact that Unity is an open platform with lots of ways to extend it. So we have built-in importers for assets. There's first-party packages which we develop. There's also third-party packages from vendors, for example, also asset store plugins, as I mentioned before, open source and community projects, and then finally vendor-specific plugins, which allow you to import file formats, but some file formats might have multiple importers. We're going to touch, for example, on GLTF and GRB, which are two popular formats today. And there are a slew of available options to import those formats because it's open source. So there's a lot of people in the community, including the Kronos group, create importers for those assets for Unity. First up, we're going to do
with the big red button, by the way. We should have used that for the slide.
Yes, we'll use it next time. I'm sure we'll find
next
it.
time.
When we go into rendering and the render pipelines, we use the memes. So digital assets, these are assets which come digitally, file formats, various things that you can import. And we're going to start with out of the box. So there's a few formats that comes out of the box when you install Unity, when you start a new project. These are bundled importers, which are always available in your project. The most popular is FBX. These are exported formats, so interchange formats that you export from something like Blender. And you can also use proprietary 3D formats like Maya, Blender, Modo, Cheetah 3D, or Cinema 4D. Cinema 4D support is through a package from the Asset Store. I put the link here on the slides. By the way, don't worry, we'll share the slides after this session. You don't have to wait for the recording. We'll make all these slides available. There's tons of links and resources that you can dive into after this session to find out more information, right? So Drew will share the link, and we also make sure to share it at the end of the session.
And just a note on, for those of you who are not from the games background, like I come from media entertainment, I wasn't very used to FBX, even though it is a media entertainment. 98% of what you use in Unity will be FBX. It's a really great format because it's not just geometry. It's got geometry, it's got textures, it's got animation, it's got skeletons, it's got materials, and we'll go an example today of bringing in an FBX that I scanned and show you how to extract those materials.
All right. So yeah, these are the built-in formats for 3D models. Let me go back 1 second. You can see here, this is a mesh and it goes into the material. This is all in the scene view, by the way, of Unity. Image files, so same as 3D models, there's a ton of options what you import. These are the image files you can import inside the editor. Again, these are not the ones that you can run at, you can import at runtime, like Targa, for example, or TIFF, because these are massive files usually. You can import raw PSDs directly inside the Unity editor. There's also a PSD package, which we're going to cover in a second, that adds functionality to import Photoshop files. But some of the most populars are going to be JPEG, PNGs, HDR images, EXR images. These are high dynamic range or extra information baked into the image format. I put here, for example, 2 examples of the inspector when you import an image. This is the one on the left is a normal map, so that gives you more details to the simplified 3D geometry. And then the other one is called albedo, which is the color basically map for a hardwood floor. In the quick tip, you have links here to jump into how to import GIFs into Unity. The internet runs on GIFs, and probably the metaverse will too. So this is a simple way of getting your GIFs inside the editor. They don't animate by default. You need to do a couple of steps, and they're detailed here with links to the documentation on how to do it. Next up, audio file, same thing. There's various formats you can import from AIF, WAV, OGG, or actually MP3. These are, again, import formats inside the Unity editor, and then you can decide how you export the sounds, right, Ben?
Yeah, we're going to do an audio workshop on our other Learn series. That's really interesting. I think the main thing you need to consider when dealing with audio, I'll talk about spatial audio in a bit, but there's 2 things you need to consider. One are compressed audio, which are smaller, but require to be uncompressed. So they'll take some CPU resources to uncompress them. So if you're building to a device like Mobo, you don't have a lot of CPU power. Or uncompressed, which is just it's going to be bigger. So if you don't, it's a balance between disk space and CPU when you start to build devices. But we'll be getting into that more later in the series when we start to actually build on devices and we'll talk a little bit later today about performance optimization, but sign up for our spatial audio workshop.
Right. Next up, video files. So again, the table on the left lists all of the formats which you can import inside the Unity editor when you create your project based on the OS, the operating system that you're using, whether you're on Windows, Mac, or Linux. Recommended out of the box is to encode everything as H.264 or VP8, for example, depending on your target platform. H.264 will probably be the most universal one, works across all of the platforms that we support. Although, for example, HoloLens 2 recommends that you use H.265. So if you have workflows which target the HoloLens, it's good to encode videos as H.264. So these are here the little panel is to transcode that video inside the Unity editor and then embed it into your project. I'm going to be honest, it's probably not the best idea because that's going to balloon your project very quickly. You probably want to stream as much as possible those videos from external sources, but that's something we can discuss in overtime if you want. Or later down the series. There's also a lot of really good plugins. One that I've used personally over the years is AV Pro. They're on the Asset Store. It's a really good library for working with videos, especially if you do video installations, which I did a bunch of. Next up are fonts. So, if you do UI work, you probably want to import your fancy fonts inside the Unity editor, where you can import TTF TrueType fonts and OpenType. I highly recommend you look at TextMesh Pro. This is the font renderer inside Unity. You can add a TM Pro, TextMesh Pro 2D UI to a canvas or 3D text inside your scene directly, which is what I did here for this Hello World. You can create TextMesh Pro fonts inside the editor. This will create optimized assets to render fonts very efficiently at runtime. I highly recommend it. I've used it for years and it's absolutely brilliant. I used it before it was acquired by Unity, and it's a really good library. And then I wanted to mention that you can also bring text assets directly inside the Unity editor, although they don't become accessible to the applications immediately. You need to kind of write a little bit of script in order to extract the data from those text assets, but we support all of these, including JSON, which is a popular format. And then now we're going to go into the package manager because we're going to go into assets which are imported through the package manager. And recently, Unity introduced, well, recently, a few years back, Unity introduced the package manager to externalize a little bit of the complexity in order not to bundle everything inside the editor directly. Right, Ben?
Yeah, like if you're building on a mobile, you know all the resources matter, and if you're not going to use Alembic for a mobile device, you don't want to have the Alembic package. So it's a way of really bringing what you need for the project and keeping things slim and optimized. I'll be doing a demo of the package manager. I'll be showing you how to get all that super secret spy stuff that you probably can't find right now.
All right, so let's start with some new packages. I want to highlight, but we'll cover that during Ben's demo, is the features, the sets which have been added to the package manager, and we'll show this in a second. Very useful to bring a bunch of packages together at once based on what you want to achieve. So I mentioned before, Photoshop is supported out of the box. We also have a Photoshop importer, which you can add to your project if you're going to be relying on very complex Photoshop files or massive Photoshop files, in the case of PSB, for example, which go up to 300,000 pixels in any direction. So, if you have very high-res images you want to bring into Unity for some reason, you can do so with this. It offers a lot of functionalities, especially to manage complexity when it comes to UI. Right, Ben?
Yeah, and I think one thing I always recommend for this is making UI elements, like making UI interfaces. So you can put everything in different layers in Photoshop, and you don't have to export each layer and then bring it into Unity. So you can build your UI, put it in layers, and just bring it all in at once. It's super, super convenient.
Yeah, makes it a lot faster. Next up, I see some movie formats like Alembic.
So for those who don't know, Alembic it's a media entertainment format. If you work in film, animation, visual effects, this is the main format everyone uses. Some things about Alembic: we have an Alembic importer. Alembics are really made for high resolution geometry. You can see here they're made for cloth simulation, face simulation. Like when we did the Hulk on Avengers and ILM, all the faces and all the bodies are all Alembic. Just a few notes about Alembic. It's just a geometry format. It doesn't have materials. It doesn't have textures. It's just points, edges, vertices moving around. But we do have some workarounds, so you can export as FBX and Alembic and remap from FBX to Alembic.
Next up is another one for you, Ben. USD.
Yeah, USD is the new exciting format. It's Pixar's universal scene description format, and it's really for how Pixar builds those big worlds. So I think it was the first film was Coco, but it's a scene description, so it references a lot of file formats. Like it could reference Alembic. But the cool thing about this, it does have its own geometry format as well, which is a bit slimmer than Alembic, but it also has material description, texture description, skeleton, animation. So it really has a lot of, it really feels to me like a more modern FBX. And I think there's a lot of industry momentum behind it. And also for like mobile AR, USDZ is a popular format. And just a little quick tip. Go back to that slide, Jerome. I forgot the quick tip.
Sorry about that.
I put a little link there to the Pixar reference kitchen, and I'll show you how to get the USD importer today. But if you want some assets to get, you can get that little kitchen from the Pixar website. And the little still on the right was actually rendered in HDRP using Unity.
Amazing. Talking again about FBX, we have an FBX exporter. I haven't used that much.
Yeah, for those who've come to our previous world building things, everyone who knows that I'm a big Pro Builder fan. Pro Builder is another package that you install that gives some basic poly modeling tools for gray boxing. And what I like to do is I like to block things out in Unity, and then you can round trip it via the FBX exporter. So I have Maya open on my computer, and I have Unity open. So I'll block some shapes, get the proportions, and then if I need to do any complex modeling, I just round trip and I export the FBX back to Maya. And the cool thing about FBX, like it says, it's got meshes, it's got materials, it's got textures, it's got hierarchies, it's got everything you need. So you can just round trip stuff back and forth really conveniently.
I wanted to mention localization. We are aiming to build the metaverse, and it's going to be international. Localizing your application is critical, and this is a really useful package. Technically, about importing, you can create everything from scratch inside the editor, but it does support various imports formats like CSV, Google Sheets, or XLIFF, which is a specific language for localized, specific like XML format for localization. Really useful. There's some nice assets localization, allows you to swap images, for example. And I think, Ben, you're particularly fan of.
Yeah, I told Jerome I got a lot of trouble. I was doing a virtual production project in Denmark of all places, and the virtual camera app was built in Unity. And then when we had Danish time versus US time and an American living in Europe, and I'm all confused, but I guess American time has colons and then European time has semicolons. So we got a little bit of trouble, and this thing came in very useful.
Exactly, because you can localize, for example, you can do smart strings, which allow you to parse strings and then change those dividers to the appropriate locale when it comes to whatever people expect, right? So it's really useful package. Again, it's inside the package manager, and we'll show you how to get packages in a second. Last but not least, this is super important. People were asking actually in the Q&A, when will GLTF be natively supported by Unity? Probably never, but we have a brilliant package which will probably eventually make its way to either a built-in package or available on the package manager. But this is an open source project called GLTFast. For those who don't know, GLTF is a open standard by the Khronos group, the people behind Vulkan and OpenGL, for example, or OpenXR, and it's being adopted across the industry as an interchange format. It's geared specifically for transport over the internet, so really well suited for anything that's multi-user or dynamic experiences that you're going to create for the metaverse. There's two flavors of file: GLTF, which is the open uncompressed version, and GRB, which stands for binary. So that's a compressed version. Both formats can bundle assets or have external dependencies. They're extensible. You can customize your GLTF format and then customize the parser. As I mentioned, GLTFast is free, open source, and available on GitHub. The link is right here. You can download it. And
we're going to show this. Yeah, I saw Jerome. Just so you know, when you said we're never going to support it, there was a frowny face. Just so you know, I love that format. As Jerome said, I like to think of it as like the JPEG of the metaverse. Me and Jerome play a lot in HoloLens, and this GLTF viewer, and you can play Microsoft Mesh. You can bring things in, and I'm going to show a lot of GLTFs today. So don't worry, we'll teach you how to get them in for the frowny face person.
All right, but the frowny face is,
Oh, they smile now. They smile now. They're happy.
Okay, good. Native support means that we bundle it into the editor. That's not the way Unity is going. Everything goes through dependencies, because if you don't need GLTF, we don't want to balloon your downloads and your projects unnecessarily. So it's going to be through a package anyway, and it's already really well supported. By the way, GLTFast, you can also export both GLTF and GRB files out of the editor, which is super useful if you want to work on your assets inside Unity and then export them, for example, and upload them to sites like Sketchfab. I mean, this is kind of slightly different, but yeah, let's dive in.
Diving cats. All right, I'm going to share screen. Let's go here. Let's go to the package manager. The main thing, we were talking about GLTF, and to address the frowny face person, like, that's the thing, that we're such an extensible platform. So this is the package manager, and this is really how you get and manage your content. So again, we're working in Unity 2021.3. We're working on the latest stable release. Notice, first things first, in the package manager, you have these new features, which are collections of packages. Like, I do a lot of cinematic stuff, and I don't want to import 6 packages one after another. So now these little collections, put them together so you can get what you need for what you're working on. So this is the package manager, and this is how we add functionality. What is a package? A package is just a container. It could be a series of assets. It could be a series of scripts. It could be tools. It could be functionality. It's all kinds of things. When you download things off the asset store, they come in as a package. So let's start here. Let's start with this. Let's start with built-in. These are all the things, the packages, when you create a new Unity project. And I have a new scene here, and it's an HDRP project, and it's just an out-of-the-box scene. But this is all the stuff that comes in, on a basic project. We have audio, we have animation. This is all the stuff most 99% of the people want. Then we have this here, which is in project. So I've got a few things already loaded here. So I've got a Visual Studio. I got visual scripting, because I'm using 2021.3. I've got high definition render pipeline. So when I built my project, the project template built this stuff. And I've already got GLTFast in here. I'll show you where to get that in a moment. But let's look at here. Let's go to Unity Registry. And this is where you get all that stuff Jerome was talking about, like that 2D PSD importer, or we're talking about Alembic, or let's bring in a package if you want to bring in AR functionality or some XR stuff, right? And you can search up here, say I want to bring in some XR stuff. I can search XR and you can say I get AR Kit, AR Core, Magic Leap, Oculus, all this stuff. This is how we add functionality. And just a quick demo, just so it's really quick, we'll go FBX Exporter. So we'll just go install that here. And you just click install, you'll get a little pop-up window and it'll add this functionality. And sometimes you get some menu items, sometimes you get some samples. So you get that. And this is straight vanilla, how you add more functionality. Yeah, once this is done, I'll show you how to get some more of the secret stuff.
It might not be obvious once you import this, if you close the, or if you move the package manager a little bit to the side so we can look at the project window.
Let me see our packages here.
Exactly. So the packages from the package manager, like this, the one that Ben just import, they import inside the packages folder, which is a special folder in your project. All of the assets in here are what we call read-only, so you can't modify them, right? They are protected. If you import assets from the asset store under My Assets, right, they're going to be copied inside the assets folder of the project, which will make them read and write, so you can modify them, you can play with them, right? So that's the main difference.
Yeah.
They are all packages, but they kind of like have different use cases. The package manager is for external dependencies, which is not necessarily going to change, just adding functionality to your project as is. And then the assets from the asset store is stuff that you want to poke around and modify or transform in order to use for your own use cases. Sorry.
Yeah, and an example of this is I brought in these HDRIs. I brought this Unity HDRI asset pack. And so my assets is all the stuff I've downloaded from the Unity store. And you can see I work here. So I have 154 pages of assets that I've downloaded. Let's go into a couple more things, though. Let's go back to my Unity registry. Some stuff is in preview package. So you talking about things like some of the more advanced features, you don't see them by default. So if you want to start to see the super secret spy stuff, one is you go to advanced project settings and you see you can enable pre-release package and enable. I've already got to check because I've been bringing stuff in for this. But if that's not checked, you won't be seeing certain things. So let's go here. I'm going to close this window real quick. And I also want to show another thing too. I'm going to jump over to some GitHub stuff as we talk about, we're bringing that GLT fast. This is in the resources that we're sharing with you where to get this, but this is the GitHub for that GLT fast that I've already got installed, which I love. It has a demo project here. It has some instructions. It has installation instructions, and it has a little installer package here. I've already got it installed because you need to exit Unity and restart it, and I didn't want you guys to wait. So I've already brought that in, but you can just click that link, download, and then you can go through here. You can say assets, and we can say import package. And I've had that here. It says nothing to import. That's okay. And let's go look at another thing here. Let's go back to this. So we're talking about USD. How do you get USD? Well, USD is right now an experimental package. That's not even showing up in the package manager. So a lot of this stuff, if you go to the GitHub or you go to the documentation, it will give you instructions for installing the packages. So I'm going to manually install this package. And what I know, because I install this all the time, it's at com.unity.formats.usd. So let's take a quick look on how to install something like this. So we can say add package by name. And if it's, again, you would get this from the documentation. I can just type in here, com.unity.formats. Let's check my chubby fingers, make sure I didn't misspell that. And then I can say add, and it'll add this package. So it'll go through a little minute, it'll go online, it'll find this package and it'll install it. And then while this installs, I'm just going to jump overhead to Kijiro's. This is another example of what Kijiro, one of Kijiro's many packages. I highly recommend you go to Kijiro's, look at his GitHub. It's glorious. But this is a point cloud thing that me and Jerome have been playing with lately. And this is a scoped registry, and it shows here how you can actually add this to what's called a manifest file. And you can manually update and you can manually add packages. And I'll show that in a minute as well. So let's go here and let me close that real quick. So this is going up. It's going for 20 seconds because of, the power of live. But here we go. Here we go.
What is magic?
So now it's installed.
Oh, and look at that. There's a little EXP next to it too, which means experimental.
And one thing too, when you're in the package manager, get these samples. I show these and people always say, where did you get that? I'm like, it's in the samples. I always show like Lenser and HDRP. There's some great samples in pretty much every package we have. So again, if you go to like HDRP, there's some great samples here. So let's go back here and let's take a look at a couple things. Look, now we have this USD menu here and I can go and import USD. Let me open the package manager one more time, actually. So you can see all these projects in packages. And then we also have my registries, which are the scoped registries. And like I've already installed the GLT fast. So let's go look at one more package manager thing, one more secret spy thing. Let's look at that manifest JSON. So we'll go here and I'll just say show in Explorer. I'm just going to open up this packages directory. And look, we have this little file. It's a text file. It's a JSON file called manifest. I can double click on that. I can open it up in a text editor. And then you can see right here, the scoped registry. I've got this right here. And these are all the packages and versions. So if you're working with experimental software, like recently I was doing, again, virtual production, and I had a brand new version of the vCam that wasn't compatible with the version of Unity, which wasn't compatible with the package. So I just went here as a quick fix to say, okay, I needed version 4.8.3, and I can just edit this text document. Cool. So let's go here. So we've got GLTF. Let's bring in a GLTF. We're here. We keep talking about GLTF. Again, we've gone through how to import content. I'm just going to go to my little folder here. I have a bunch of stuff I'm going to bring in today, but one is this great GLTF file that Jerome found. So I'm just going to go ahead and drag this whole content here. I've got textures. I've got a scene. I've got a little folder made for GLTF. I'm going to bring that in. I've got that package installed. So now I can bring in GLTFs. I think this thing is gorgeous. I love this. This car is beautiful. It comes in with the textures. It comes in with the materials. We'll talk about FBX in a later demo of how to import and extract those textures. But look, everything comes out of the box. I'm going to go throw in HDRI as well. I downloaded some HDRIs. So I just deleted my sky and fog volume. I've made a pre one. So I'm just going to get a volume, global volume. I'm going to call this HDRI. And I'm just going to load a pre-made profile I made. And I'll go over this in our HDRP thing later. But you can see here, I've got this sky. And look at this real-time, gorgeous, gorgeous reflections, gorgeous thing. And this is using an HDRI. So this is a high dynamic range light. So the lighting is actually coming from the image-based lighting. And I have a whole bunch of HDRIs in here so I can change the thing. Let's go Kirby Cove. Let's go Muir Woods. And I just think GLTFs, they're tiny, they're gorgeous, and they're amazing. And we'll keep taking a look at some stuff. I'll show you I built a configurator, which I put online, and I'll show you in the next demo how I did that. But you can see we can look at this and the church, and yeah, GLTF. It's in, it's working, it's magic. Where's the smiley face guy? Is he smiling now?
No, I don't see any. Smiley face.
All right, cool. Excellent. So I'll give it back to you, Jerome, and we're going to come back and we're going to bring in. I've just scanned a bunch of assets, so we're going to come back to this demo. We're going to keep building upon it.
Switching gears now, robotics. For all you robot nerds out there, there is a few packages which you can look at. URDF, so the Unified Robot Description Format. This allows you to bring your robot representation inside Unity, along with creating the physics meshes or importing the physics meshes, for example, to do clash detection. ROS TCP connector. This is more of a runtime connector to connect to a RobotOS, a ROS server, in order to, for example, link a physical robot to the virtual one, or vice versa, or play a ROS simulation and visualize it inside Unity. So really useful format. And more information is available at the Robotics Hub. This is all open source and available on GitHub. So definitely check it out if you are doing anything with robotics. For the more industrial customers, we have Unity Industrial Collection. This is a premium version of Unity, which includes Unity Pro, Pixis plugin, System Graph, which is a mechatronic system creation, and also a couple of material importers for XTech and AXF. What are XTech and AXF? Well, they are scanned materials from companies like Xrite or Visu 3D, which gives realistic representation or hyper-accurate representation of industrial materials. This is really used, for example, by auto manufacturers, but also industrial machine manufacturers, to ensure that regardless of the package or the application that you use to render the material, they are accurate and represented as they should in or as close as possible to real life. These are some examples that I worked on with my colleague Simon from the solution engineering team using Unity, the high definition render pipeline, and path tracing, because why not, in order to render those. Just drag and drop the EXF material once you have the custom packages available with Unity Industrial Collection. There is a trial, I think, available for Unity Industrial Collection. Another big part of Unity Industrial Collection is Pixis plugin, because out of the box, as you may have noticed, we don't import any sort of CAD or BIM format, and this is how you do it. Pixis is now part of Unity, supports about 40 industrial format, pretty much all of the major ones, including CATIA, JT, SolidWorks. I'll be showing you this little skid loader, which is a SolidWorks file that was imported with Pixis plugin, allows you to do this optimization routines like retessellation of the mesh, allows you to also automate workflows with actions, and is fully extensible with C#. There's about 140 algorithms which you can use. And one of our favorite with Ben is actually move pivot. If you work with industrial format, the pivot is usually at 0, 0, 0.
That comes in
really
today.
great.
Some of the stuff I brought in, and I'll show some of that stuff today. But Jerome, I have to comment on this, and I've told Jerome this story, but I need to sympathize. My very first job when I was in the aerospace industry was taking CATIA files off IBM AIX workstations, transferring them on DAT tapes to another type of computer, converting them to IGES in another software, and then taking them onto SGIs and then converting them into Alias just so I can make them pretty and shiny and rotate them on $100,000 computers, which now we can do on a laptop in 2 clicks.
And today,
And I didn't even get half the
2 clicks.
quality of that car. We just did GLTF.
And today we can do that in 2 clicks inside the Unity editor directly with Pixis plugin. But I'll be showing this more in over time, because we have a lot of stuff to cover in regular time, or regulation time, sorry. All right, so that's it for the digital assets. There's more. If you have specific formats that you're interested in, someone actually asked about SVG, and I posted the package in the Q&A. There's pretty much a package for everything, either from Unity or the community. So, but if you have specific questions, put them in the Q&A. We'll try to address them and give you the resources you need. And now we're going to move to physical assets. How do you bring physical objects from real life inside the Unity ecosystem? And Ben, we're going to start with maybe a little primer on 3D asset
about
capture.
how to get the real world stuff. Jerome and I have been scanning the world like crazy. We've been doing many strategery burger sessions and scanning our burgers.
Sorry.
But the first thing is photogrammetry. This is a technology that's been around a long time. And it's really just, we have the example here of capturing a pine cone. You take a picture from many angles, you put some reference points, you feed it into some software. We have a little PDF guide if you really want to use this, but it's how do you make a 3D object? And it's really good for making like organic shapes and really hard to model shapes. This has been around for a while. We put a guide in there. Let's go to the next slide, because this is where it gets exciting. 3D scanner apps, they're taking photogrammetry to the next level, because, like before I'd use like whatever, I can't remember whatever, like reality capture, and would grind on my PC. I'd put 500 photos and I would grind on my PC for 8 hours, whatever, back in the old timey days when I walked to work.
And DSLRs, right?
Directions. Yeah. But me and Jerome have been playing with these and 3D scanner apps on your phone. The new iPhones have LiDAR. So that's one way of scanning. I brought some stuff in from LiDAR today. And we've just been scanning everything. And I put a whole bunch of resources for your apps to try. We just bought a company called Rest AR. They're using it to make just people to do e-commerce, to scan shoes. A lot of amazing stuff. I don't have a favorite. They're all great. And some are good for small objects. Some are good for big objects. I put a couple examples I did this past week. One, I just walked around the Unity office like this with my iPhone, and using the LiDAR function, I captured a point cloud of the entire Unity office in about 6.5 minutes. I didn't expect much out of it. It was so cool. I brought it in from my background of doing visual effects and, location scouting and getting measurements, like to get dimensions and start to think. You can see again the burger we were talking about. That's a burger again. They just process it on the cloud. So, and you can pull it down in GLTF, you can pull it down in FBX, you can pull it down in OBJ, you can pull it down in anything you want. Let's go next one.
Is that a brioche bun on that burger?
There's a brioche bun. That's not the burger we had at lunch. That's the one my wife.
I know.
Have you been having scale to the burger ones we did?
But we'll bring this in without me, Ben. I'm
going to bring this into Unity, and I can share it with you digitally.
Thank you. I'm next.
High dynamic range. So we brought in that HDRI This is shooting a thing. So this is the actual Unity office I shot with my DSLR. And what you do is you shoot, I have a wide angle lens. So I shot, the office, and I shot bracket in 5 exposures. So I really just changed the time. So I had it at, a locked aperture and a locked ISO, and I just changed the shutter speed, and I got five exposure values, which you can see below. So I captured everything in the dark range all the way up to the brighter range. And then you can just dump these EXRs. I put it together in a program called Huggin, and then you could just dump it in Unity, and I'll bring this London office into Unity, and I'll show you how to bring in an EXR to actually use it for physical lighting. So if you got a showroom you want to do, or you have a location-based thing, you want to capture that lighting, it's great. 360 video, again, unsung hero. Unity is the ultimate tool for 360 video. If you're doing VR, you don't want complex backgrounds. You want to do something simple in the background. I shot the one on the left with a stationary, and you can't really see anything. My colleague was like waving his legs. No one came in the office. So I had to go do a walk around just to show you that it's actually moving and it's 360. But you can just drag and drop. You make a render texture, and then you look through the camera. And if you're in VR, you just apply, the pose driver to the head, or just use, the Oculus integration or XRI toolkit, and suddenly you're in a VR sphere, and it's great.
Yeah. Fun fact, you can also export 360 videos directly out of the Unity editor if you want to take a very complex scene and then bake it into a video to play on like a very low-end VR headset. If you just need, if you don't need positional tracking, then there's a good way also of optimizing your workflow.
Yeah, and to get video in, I put a link in the resources. It's 4 steps. Materials, Art Engine. I walked around the city. I captured, this is actually my colleague did this because his came out better than mine. But this is Art Engine. This is a company we bought, AI stuff. Again, if you've ever done textures, it does seam removal. It does repair. It up-reses JPEG. So now you can use your phone to shoot textures and create materials. And it'll automate and create the process. So you can output PBR materials. So it'll create normal maps. It'll create roughness. It'll create occlusion. It's voodoo.
Yeah,
and I put a link to the free trial there.
I believe the good people of Quixel use Art Engine to work on the materials. So there we go. It's a really foundational tool. I love the mutation tool also that allows you to randomize a little bit the nature of the material without changing its definition too much. But also,
and you for example, grab 2 things. Like you can grab one type of stone and another color stone, and you can mutate between them to get another. So it's infinite variations. It's very cool.
Yeah, it's really powerful. Ooh, volumetrics video. That's exciting. Wait, is that you there?
This is me. And again, volumetric video. We're talking metaverse. We're talking stuff. How do you make 3-dimensional avatars? I was in a Magic Leap conference call, and the guy I was talking to had actually set up a couple volumetric cameras. So his avatar was a point cloud. So I've been playing with, again, we talked about Kajiros. I put this link in here, but this is just an Azure depth camera. They're about 300 pounds. It's the Azure Connect DK, and it captures depth, and we can convert that to, this is converted to a point cloud, which is then being played with our visual effects graph. So you can kind of take avatars to the next level and add some magic stuff. So if you want to start doing 360 volumetric captures, just grab a couple depth cameras, and you can hook up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's a blast.
Yep. It's also capture 4K. RGB.
Someone's asking in the chat, can we replicate the HoloLens from Empire? Yes, I've done that a million times. Check out my one of my previous shader graph things, because I come from Lucasfilm and I've done a million holograms in my life. And we're talking about spatial audio. And again, there's different ways of capturing spatial audio. You can import different formats. We'll be giving a workshop on this, but you can see I put I'm all about low cost democratizing everything. So there is like a 200 or 300 pound spatial audio. It's a Zoom, the H3 VR recorder, and that will capture a 360 audio. But you can also just use a regular thing, and you could spatialize it in Unity, and you can put audio sources in locations. We'll be going that in later in the year, but don't forget audio. Audio is a very important part of creating a successful experience.
Audio is also a great part to carry emotions, right? So when you do an experience, a lot of that carries through. I think we have a live demo now.
All right, let's jump in and let's show us what we've been working on. So we've got this here. We brought this in. The first thing I'm going to do is let's go. We've talked about in the past bringing in assets. The way you want to bring in assets, you can go import new asset here. Let's go bring some GLTFs in first. Well, let's bring in an FBX. I think an FBX is a difficult one to bring. So I can drag from my desktop, or I can just go here and I can say import new asset. I put a bunch of stuff. I've been scanning the entire city of London the past couple of weeks. So I'll go here. Well, where's my desktop? Desktop. Here we go. Content. And I put some 3D scans. So I went to the Kew Gardens in London and I went and 3D scanned the statue. I used the LiDAR on my phone. So the first thing we're talking about when you bring in video formats, when you bring in anything, you click on things up here, they're a game object. When you want to talk about the import, whether it's video, audio, you want to click on it here in the project window and you look in the inspector and look, I have model, rig, animation, materials. So first thing is FBX, if you bring it in, the materials are all broken. It looks horrible because you might need to extract those. So the first thing you want to do is you want to click this little extract and it'll ask me to create a little folder. So I'll go here and I'll just create a new folder and I'll just call it textures. And I'll just double click in here and it's going to pull those textures out of that FBX model. And you can see here, now it's got little textures and in here, it's actually created the texture map. So this also has materials. So you can see right now, it doesn't have a material assigned. So I'm going to extract the materials. Typically I go through and make my own materials because I'm a look dev snob, but I'll go and just grab this one from the get-go just to see what we get.
If you don't extract either the textures or the material from the FBX file, you cannot edit them either. So
yeah, and that's important. We'll look at the pros and cons of like GLTF. So let's take a look at this too. And we go here and the statue is super tiny. And where's that? That's 000. So you can see how tiny that statue is. The scale is off. So this is one thing I know when I bring in FBX from this particular, I did this in Polycam. The scale is off by about 100. So we can redo this and we can do, we can select a bunch of stuff at the same time. So you can see here the scale. Look at this. This is gorgeous.
One unit notice that Unity is a meter, right? So
yeah.
One scale is 1 meter.
And that's a great point. That's a great thing, Jerome. One scale is a meter. So if you're ever in doubt, just create a cube and the cube is 1 meter. So if you've ever developed for HoloLens, you got to make the cube really tiny. So you got to go in the other direction. So whether you're going big or small, I think the easiest thing is to make a cube. So we have this statue and this is an FBX and this is using the LiDAR from my phone. And this, it's got these textures. I think this is gorgeous.
That looks fantastic.
Let's bring in some GLTFs and let's go. I'm going to import new asset. So I'm going to go back to my desktop and I have this little content folder and I'll bring in some GLTFs. I brought these 3D scans. So I have my sneakers, I have some broccoli, I have my shoes. Let's bring it up. Let's not bring in the roast chicken. That's a little gross. Oh, and I just brought it into the wrong folder. That's okay. A little organizational, and we were before, should we bring them in before? Do we import them live? But we wanted to import these live just because the FBXs are big. Like the same FBXs, these are like 50 megabytes. These little things are 10 megabytes and under. So you can see I just brought in a whole gaggle of them, and look how quick I brought them in. So let me go here real quick, and I'm just gonna shift collect these, and just for Jerome's OCD, I'm gonna put them in my GLTF. So let's bring these in. I just want to show the cool thing I like about the GLTF is it comes in the right scale. It's already got the materials. I don't need to extract materials. I don't need to do all that stuff I was doing. Now the statue is huge. We get the burger. We got the broccoli. So I'm just going to bring a bunch of these in so we can take a look at some of the quality.
That's because they get converted when you import, right? So
yeah,
the brilliant creator of GLT Fast make a conversion of them so they asset ready inside Unity.
I brought in my Peloton sneakers because I'm getting fit. So
you have a Peloton bike? Oh my God.
I do have a Peloton bike. And then we go here. But you can see the quality. And these are all just 3D scans from my iPhone. So we got this little banh mi here. We got this. This is me and Jerome one for banh mi. We got the statue and we got the shoe. So really the cool part about this is anything you want to build, you can bring in. I'm going to bring in one more piece of content because I also brought in that thing is we talk about you can bring in other things. So I went and edited an FBX. I've got a scan of the Star Wars helmet that I did. So I'm going to go ahead and import this, and I'm bringing this as an FBX. This is bringing as a Maya binary. And so I went and did some editing of this already, and you can see the quality of the scan. It's got a little noise in here, but it's pretty photoreal. and it's pretty exciting. And this was my farewell gift from Lucasfilm, where everyone kind of signed the helmet. But this is anything you want to do, whether you want to do e-commerce, you want to do training, you don't have resources to buy stuff, you don't have what you want downloaded, you have something custom, you're a toy designer, you're making a new product. This is great. So I'm going to save this real quick, and I'm going to show this. We can go into this in overtime, but for those who've seen the stuff I've been working on, I put this on the internet earlier, is I took all those assets and I wanted to look at them under, like I said, I'm a look dev snob. So I spent a lot of time building digital assets, looking under different lighting conditions. And the thing you traditionally did was build look dev turntables and render QuickTime movies of this stuff. So the first thing I always do when I bring assets is I want to look at it in a bunch of HDRI. So I made this little look dev turntable. So I have here where I did a little visual scripting, and this is the same visual script we did in our last workshop in the Learn platform, and we'll go over it next month as well. If I hover over it, it does a little rotate. I click here, I can change the asset. Let's find a good one. I think that Peloton, the statue came out good. And then I can click on this, and I can look under different lighting environments here. And let's bring in one more piece of content real quick. I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say import new asset. Let's go here.
You're still in play mode, so be careful.
Oh, I'm still in play mode. Jerome is smart because I didn't change my color like I told everyone to do last time because I was doing some video capture. So I got let's go here to my desktop, and I have this content folder is this HDRI I shot of the Unity office. So I'm just going to import this to show that you can just import an EXR. And one question I always get, again, the import, like what import things do I use? So I just have some ones I downloaded. So I just look at these guys and say, okay, default, here we go. Default, cube, auto, glossy, trilinear. Okay, so that's what I need to do for mine. So I just go here, change it. So it was default, cube. I put here specular glossy, and it was trilinear. I hit apply, and now this thing's ready to go. So now I can use this as one of my lighting environments, which is a lot of fun. So I'll bring that in here, and I've secretly already have this installed. So let's hit play, and let's take one more look at this. Well, then we'll put this away for now, and Jerome, you take it, and we can take a look at that overtime. And in the next slide, I showed you where you can download this.
Right here. There we go.
I put this on Furios. I built this as an application. I uploaded it to the cloud so you can stream it. You can play with it. You can look at all the stuff, all the Jerome and Ben lunches and all the lighting environments, including that London HDRI, which is right there.
Data preparation and performance optimization. So this is quite important when you import content. You need to be mindful of how you optimize it for the target platform. There's really no magic trick. It all depends on the type of application you're building and the platform you are targeting. So whether it's HoloLens 2, Magic Leap, Quest, desktop VR headset, I tried to gather with Ben, we tried to gather together a few specs which are available publicly from either Microsoft, Oculus, or Magic Leap. Again, this is really dependent. I vetted some of those with colleagues from other companies like at Microsoft. And for example, if you have the highest complexity model you want to use on the HoloLens or HoloLens 2 is really 100,000 triangle, right? So you need to really optimize those data sets. If you have big, complex meshes like that Star Wars helmet is 500,000 triangles. So you need to bring that down if you want to show it on the HoloLens. Why do you want to optimize it? Because otherwise the frame rate is going to suffer and the object is not going to be correctly tracked, or people are going to get sick if they're in VR. So it's really important. We link to some really good resources here on getting started with data optimization and performance optimization. But here are some best practices to keep in mind when you create content, right? Is reduce the number of materials per object, reduce the complexity of the shaders as much as possible, reduce your texture size. So that's the pixel size of the textures. You can set that inside Unity per platform. Hide hidden object or removed unused data sets. For example, inside a model, if you don't look inside a car, just remove everything in the engine block. For example, reduce the number of triangles by decimating the mesh. Draw calls are a funny thing. It's the instructions that are sent to the GPU. They vary depending on your setup. Try to pull together materials, textures, and then objects will get pulled together in draw calls. Ben?
Yeah, well, Jerome, because I'm always saying Jerome, he's like, cue the Ben story because he knows I'm going to say it. Is I come from visual effects and everything is a separate material. That's not the way to work in real time. Each material is going to give you more draw calls. So really condense those. use textures, use your roughness, use your, condense everything into one texture map and one material if possible.
One trick is, for example, if you have tons of objects which use the standard Unity shader, like the lead shader in URP or HDRP, you can pull together the atlas that they use, the images, you can atlas them into one texture, and that's going to allow Unity to pull all of those objects together and bundle them in one draw call. So there's a lot of techniques like these. There's documentation that I linked. Hierarchy complexity is something that I want to point out. If you have nested objects, object within object within object within objects, eventually that has a cost, right? Depending on the complexity of your scene, because the last node, in order to figure out its position rotation, we need to evaluate all of the parents, right? In order to know where it is in 3D space. So anything that's nested that doesn't need to be, just pull it to the root, and that's going to improve performance. And finally, bake. Baking is rendering complexity. So for example, ambient occlusion, these are the little contact shadows or close shadows that you have at the angles of a room or of an object. You can bake normal maps. Normal maps gives you more details, and then you can simplify the geometry. So the geometry itself is simple, but it looks very complex. And cookies is just a joke. Performance optimization is hard. So treat yourself and make sure to, have some fun. I'm going to focus here on things to keep in mind when it comes to performance optimization. Again, is debugging, right? Debug your application. If you see the frame rate is dropping, there's a lot of profiling tools available inside Unity. We have the profiler, where you go to Windows Profiler, Windows Analytics Profiler. There's a profile analyzer that allows you to take samples of the profiler and then compare them so you can see what's going wrong in the application. Memory profiler to detect those memory leaks. Frame debugger is what you see here. This is super useful. It shows you the full render stack, every single thing that happened on the rendering thread in order to figure out, hey, why is that shader, for example, causing this object to render 2 times, 3 times, right? So you can debug this. And then finally, the physics debugger, which is a visual aid inside the Unity editor to see what's happening with physics. Maybe you have a ton of colliders. You don't need to. At least you can find them that way. And then a really great...
I just want to throw one thing. Never, ever make assumptions when profiling. Always profile. We've worked with many people, and I've done it a million times where I just keep reducing the poly count until I have 4 polygons and it doesn't do anything. And then I realize it was a material, right? So never just assume that you have too much geometry or too many textures. Profile first and find out where those bottlenecks and save yourself.
Profile in the editor. Right, you can profile inside the editor in play mode. You can profile as a standalone process, and you can also profile the application, whether it's on the device or not, in order to really get down to the nitty-gritty performance. Really great package called the Project Auditor. This is, again, a super secret experimental package, not officially supported by Unity, but super useful. Everybody I show this to absolutely loves it. It allows you to analyze your project, your Unity project, and figure out everything that needs to be fixed, for example, in assets optimization or scripts inclusion, etc. Allows you to also analyze builds. So when you do a build, you can analyze the post build and see why is my build 3 gigabytes? What? Because I have 20 Alembic files that are being bundled with my application, for example. That can be something like this. We're going to keep plowing ahead. These are just some examples of the content that we're going to be producing later on in the series, right? Again, we have a lot of variety.
Today was all about how to get content, where to get content. Next time we're going to start building stuff with visual scripting, and we have 2 pieces of content we're going to share with you. We have that skid loader and we have the coffee machine. So if you want to come follow along with us and build an AR or VR app, but also if you have your own content, start scanning, start building, so then you can follow on the journey and you can build your own apps with us.
Talking of the journey, here it is, right? We showed you this the last time. These are our workshops. They're on the Create page that has been linked already in the chat. If you see a topic that you like, just make sure to sign up. There's a checkbox to sign up for all the episodes so you get notified, and then you can join us when things are of interest to you. And as Ben mentioned, last month we did a Learn Live series on Introduction to Visual Scripting. So go check that out if you're interested in learning more, but we'll be covering it also in this series. The Learn Live is really hands-on.
It's step by step. We do something, you watch, and then you step by step. And if you've never used visual scripting before, this is where to start. We're going to start from the basics next time, but we're going to ramp up really quick next time. So it's really for people who are familiar with visual scripting. So if you really have never tried it, it's on demand right now. So go grab it.
Ben and I talk to the creators, but there's also executives, our bosses, for example, and they need convincing. If you want them to understand why your organization or why Unity is going to matter for the metaverse, tomorrow we have the first executive series episode with Ryan Peterson, head of Accelerate Solutions. It's going to be pretty amazing. Lots of examples and why this is a transformative. Unity and the metaverse are going to be a transformative thing for industrial customers moving forward. And as Drew mentioned, we also have the Metaverse Minute, which is a monthly blog post that covers a lot of really great use cases for the metaverse, either with or without Unity, actually, but most of it is made with Unity, and it's really fantastic way of seeing what the community is building for the next iteration of human computing, I guess. Ping
You want
us,
to
make
see
sure
3D
to
scans of burgers happening in real
Yes.
time. This is where you see it.
Hashtag
Everything I scan,
R2MV.
I tweet.
Hashtag R2MV. Follow us on LinkedIn or Twitter. We try to post a lot of stuff. I know Ben is a machine. I'm second, but trying really hard to follow in his footsteps.
So we'll do some Q&A now, and then we're going to jump in the editor after. So if you guys have some questions and want to dig into some stuff live, we can dig deeper into the projects.
Yeah, now let's just jump right into the Q&A. So the first question is a little bit of a random one, a random specific question according to the asker. So for the HTC Vive Focus 3, what render pipeline is best to use? They're about to start a new project. Okay.
URP. I think,
URP.
again, to break that down, HDRP is for high visual fidelity and NVIDIA graphics cards or consoles like PS4, PS5, Xbox. If you want something on a device, and the focus is the mobile with the mobile chipset, that's something you'd want to use URP. Universal Render Pipeline is for everything. So phone, console, platform. And Universal Render Pipeline, it doesn't mean it doesn't have the visual fidelity. It just has less compute powered things that, certain things that require compute capable devices. But URP is gorgeous.
Kijiro has a URP. URP now support deferred lighting. So it's getting on par with some of the visual quality of HDRP, but obviously doesn't have the compute shader dependencies that HDRP requires.
Yeah, I mean, as long as you don't want to make a mobile VR app about iridescent translucent soap bubbles, I think you're good.
Now you can use
ray trace iridescent reflective soap bubbles.
There is a way to stream high quality content from a desktop renderer, for example. So that's possible also. But if you want on device and it's going to be a battery powered device, then use URP. And it's getting a lot of improvement in the latest versions of Unity, specifically on the Oculus Quest with late latching, for example, to reduce latency. So there's a lot of work going on in optimizing URP for VR.
All right, awesome. Thanks very much for your question. Thanks for your answers, guys, as well. Okay, next one up here. Is there going to be a workshop about using video within Unity? I was under the impression video is not supported in Unity.
So we support video out of the box, but honestly, the video player is pretty simple, especially it's, I will, as I mentioned before, AV Pro is a really good asset on the asset store. It is pricey, but it is really fantastic for any sort of really advanced video workflows. Kijiro also has ways of streaming video inside the editor. There's tons of ways of working with video with Unity. I don't think we'll have a workshop on it, but ping us on Twitter or LinkedIn, and I'll try to pull together resources and share with you some of my experience. I've done a ton of video installations over the years, including like for the World Expo in Milan, for example, and 6K screens, crazy stuff. So.
Next question up here. Can you round trip by selecting a model, importing it into Blender, and then returning back?
Yeah, the FBX exporter does that. And there's actually some LiveLink stuff. I didn't, it's more media entertainment focused, so we didn't include it. But there's actually some LiveLink stuff, again, from Kijiro in Japan. But he's got a whole package too. You can actually edit in Blender and see the live updates in Unity. It's pretty. I'll find it right now on I'll stick it in the chat. But you can do it in Maya.
Japan, yeah.
You can do it in Blender. So if you're sitting next to a modeler, you can see his model updates as they happen, as they push in full CVs. You can see them in the editor. It's pretty crazy. I find it a little disconcerting. I find it like when I work in Google Slides and Jerome updates a slide, I think there's a ghost that moved the picture. So I find it disconcerting.
Okay, next question here, a little more of a general one. Is it possible to use open source animation on my character in Unity?
Yeah, I mean, I use Mixamo all the time. There's a ton of free libraries. We go over that, we have an animation workshop coming up next week. And I can show that next week, but we're going to focus on other stuff. But I've shown that in the past in my road to real time. But you can just bring in animation through an FBX, and then if you just make if like a Robot Kyle or the Real Time Rascals, they're a humanoid rig. So when you import, like I was showing the import settings of the assets today, where it was model and extract texture, there's one called rig. There you just put it to humanoid rig. I have tons of stuff online. Ping me on Twitter and I'll send you a video I've already done on how to do that. And you can also just record from video. There's a few websites that you can record video and it'll extract motion capture. And you can also use like a thing like a Rococo suit, a motion capture suit, which is about 2,000 pounds.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep the questions coming here. When you work with when you work with packages, does it bloat up the Unity project, and do you need to clean it up?
That depends if they're included or not on the usage. So use the project auditor that I shared to see what's included. It shouldn't. If you don't use them, it's not included. So that's a lot of the packages, by the way, that you add to the Unity editor are editor side functionality. So everything that's editor or marked as editor only won't be packaged with your application, right? Keeping in mind that actually, if you don't include the library folder, which is inside the Unity, like the secret folder that we use to cache all of our stuff. Then when you share your project, for example, with someone else, all of those packages will be pulled again manually, automatically, sorry. So they won't automatically, they won't crowd your project folder if you exclude some, like the library folder that will be recreated anyway if you open a project on a different machine. So yes and no, that depends. But most of it, if it's editor functionality, it stays in the editor. So you don't have to worry too much. But otherwise, use the project auditor.
Yeah, and just common sense. Like if you put every single package in and you're trying to build to a mobile device, that's just not a good idea.
Well,
which I've done, which I do with my HoloLens all the time.
A lot of stuff won't get included anyway, but it might break things, so be mindful. But then they're easy to remove also. You can do it through the package manager.
Okay, next up here. Are you planning to support importing or syncing USD files?
Well, the open source GitHub, I'll share the link in the thing, but I showed you how to get that package so you can import USDs. And I'm not going to go over all the functionalities. It's still an experimental thing, but yeah, we definitely have the whole world has plans for USD. So I just put in the chat the GitHub so you can see what's available now, what the release is, and what it supports.
It was even mentioned yesterday on the investor call. So that, we are building a USD centric pipeline thanks to our friends at Weta Digital. So yeah, it's a big thing internally. USD GRTF is the future.
Yeah, and just a shout out to the guy who started. I think he started or created it. He was at Pixar. His name's Jeremy Cowles. He's got a great Twitter. I'll find his Twitter. You should follow him on Twitter. But he was a big impact. I don't know if he solely did it, but whatever. But he was a big impact on that project because he implemented USD at Pixar.
Ben and I stand on the shoulders of giants at Unity.
Yeah, he's got a good Twitter, so I'll find it real quick.
All right. Next question here. Is there a case, or are there any cases where a package is dependent on another package?
Yes. Yeah, there's dependencies. You can visualize them. Ben showed you how to enable preview packages. Below it, there's enable dependency tracking, and that shows you the dependencies for that package. By the way, the package manager is not something we invented. It uses the Node package manager, NPM, which is one of the most popular package management system in the world. I suppose maybe bar like something like NuGet, which is focused from kind of like the equivalent from Microsoft. We use a lot for .NET projects, but NPM is what we use, and it has dependencies. So when you create a package, for example, if you create your own custom package, because you can create your own custom package, you can dictate, for example, if it's dependent on HGRP, you can put that as a dependency, and when people add your package, HGRP will be pulled to the project automatically. So yes, definitely.
Automagically, there it is. A colleague of ours said that, and now it is kind of stuck as an inside joke.
Can GLT Fast easily extract animations and allow to control them from C# scripts in Unity?
I haven't tried that yet. I just started playing with it.
I think so. Yeah, I think you can. Check out the GitHub page. It should be supported.
And that's in the resources we shared. So
right.
I'll share that as well in the chat. That's the GitHub, and I'll show the resources as well. Or go to my Twitter at Light and Alchemy. The resources are on my Twitter. Shameless social media plug.
Are there any Arduino resources?
Yes, not next month. the month after, right, Ben? We're doing IoT, and we are going to show some Arduino. So yes, definitely Arduino resources. There's a Uniduino, I think, is on the asset store. There's a free and a paid version with Arduino support. Check it out. It's super easy to connect an Arduino to Unity.
A bit of another general question, but I feel like it's important to point this person towards resources. What's the best way to start game development through Unity Engine for undergrad students, just from basics?
Yeah, Unity Learn is that Create with Code series. I think is outstanding. You make a little go-kart thing, and it's really like I did it, and I loved it. I work here, and I found it enjoyable. Yeah.
In the hub, you have Learn resources. There's the Lego micro game in there also, which is all geared towards learning how to make games with Lego assets. I mean, how amazing is that? So there's a ton of resources inside the Unity hub when you first install Unity. Otherwise, learn.unity.com has a million really great resources to learn to get started with Unity for games.
All right, awesome. Thanks, guys. Do 3D scanner apps work with Android phones with no LiDAR?
Yes,
there's a photogrammetry. Yeah, there's a bunch that use photogrammetry, and it's an option in there, like LiDAR or photogrammetry, and the Android ones just don't have the LiDAR. Jerome's an Android guy. I'm an iOS guy.
Yeah, I have a Pixel, but I do have an iPad Pro, so I can use that with the LiDAR.
All right. Is Art Engine going to be available for educators? Love to use Art Engine in my classroom.
Now, we have an education team, so I think it's on the website. Otherwise, ping us and we'll provide you with their official contact. Of course, they want to work with educational institutions and make sure that Unity and Art Engine is taught as much as possible. So please reach out if you have questions.
For the statue, what software did you use on your phone?
I use Polycam. I use LiDAR. And the cool part about that is I crafted it today because I missed the top because I wasn't tall enough to get the top. So next time I go back to that garden, it's Kew Garden. There's a bunch of statues. I'm going to bring a little step ladder with me so I can get all the statues. But I thought the quality of that was just, usually I use photogrammetry for that LiDAR. I think for big meter by 2 meter stuff, the LiDAR is the way to go. For smaller, more detailed objects, I'm using photogrammetry. I use them all. I think 3D scanner app, I'm finding I like that one for LiDAR environments, and I'm finding for mid to big objects, I'm finding Polycam.
All right, awesome. So I guess maybe one more question here off Q&A. Sorry, I'm just going to kind of pick it a little bit at random here. Hopefully, if anyone has any remaining questions, is there a way to follow up with you guys? If anyone has any important questions that aren't able to be answered during the session?
And it's in the resources, and you got to get my Twitter to get the resources. So it's a bit of an inception loop.
For sure. Okay, one quick last question here. What workflow would you use for architecture and custom furniture?
In terms of workflow, in terms of building stuff, or, I mean, that's a broad question, but I mean, there's so many awesome tools. Like one thing I was just talking about was, to get a space with a LiDAR. I mean, this big, expensive, I can't remember the name of the thing. Yeah, that's amazing. But those were, I don't know, tens of thousands of dollars. Like literally on my phone, I walked around like this, and that gave me basic dimensions. Like I was shooting some video reference recently after that. So I set up my camera on a tripod, and then I just scanned the room and I scanned the tripod, and I had the height of the tripod and I had the distance from what I was filming. And it's amazing where, back in the day in visual effects, we'd just draw lots of diagrams and measure things with tape measures.
Awesome. We're just going to close up the Q&A for now. Thank everyone for joining us for today's session. Of course, we are going to go into overtime in just a moment. But big thanks to Ben and Jerome, of course, as well as all of our organizers. So please keep an eye out for the follow-up email containing links to all the resources mentioned in today's talk. Now let's get into some overtime. So you guys can take it away.
Yep, I'll start because I had to skip. After my best practices session, I wanted to do a little bit of data preparation with Pixie's Studio. So quickly, 5 minutes on data prep. This is Pixie Studio. It's a standalone application that we sell. And its purpose is data preparation with industrial formats like CAD and BIM, but you can also bring FBXs. The idea here, this is CAD data. So this is obviously parametric data. There's no tessellation. You have here, for example, you can see if I hide the outline and the BREP are the CAD lines. There's nothing else in here. So this is really like a raw CAD format. I'm going to turn this back on so it doesn't disappear. When I go through the selection, let me go to my notes. and make sure I have my workflow. So there's a few things I mentioned before is in optimizing your data, you can go to scene here and delete empty occurrences. So these are empty nodes inside the model. For the sake of speed, I'm not going to click on that right now. You can rake the tree. This is going to bring all of the nodes inside the root node. You can also go to materials, for example, here you can resize all of the textures inside your model in one go, which makes it super practical. You can also clean up unused textures, clean up unused materials. Someone was talking about, hey, if I have stuff in my project, do they can they kind of increase the size of a build? Yes. So if you don't need stuff, just make sure to remove it, especially in files which are going to embed data like FBX files, right? Which come with all that data baked in. So if you have a ton of materials and textures in there, even if you don't if you end up hiding some of the parts, they're still going to be inside that model.
Yeah, and Jerome and I came up with this earlier. We were going through a bunch of stuff I downloaded from an FBX from photogrammetry site, and the photogrammetry site named everything the same: the materials, the textures, and the geometry. So we imported a new piece of geometry, and it automatically picked up a previous texture material. Right. So this is a really great tool.
Thank you, Ben. I wanted to show this. Also, when you work with CAD data, they often are called standard because, super practical. So if you don't know what they are, so you can, if you go to the material editor here, you can see that, I have a few materials called standard, and when I'm going to import this into Unity, they're all going to be named standard. So that's really great to know what they are. One quick fix here is to make sure to make material names unique, and you just click this, and then if I go back to my material editor, at least now they have a little underscore with a number, which makes replacing them a lot easier. So a quick tip here. So when you deal with CAD data and Pixel Studio, super simple. You can repair the CAD, but this is a data set that's pretty clean already. And then you can decide to tessellate. This is going to create the actual first pass at the geometry. So here, I'm not optimizing for performance. I'm optimizing for quality in comparison to the parametric data of the CAD model. So how much, how close do I want to be to the original perfect curvature defined here mathematically with my tessellation? So if we're targeting, and this model, for example, in this use case, Ben and I were working on something towards the HoloLens. So we want to be between 200 and 100, between 100,000 to 200,000 polygon at best, keeping in mind that this is the full model. So we're not going to show all of the parts at once. There's, multiple options here, but so let's pick medium. Basically, the higher, the lower the max sag is the distance between the curve and the vertices that are created. So medium is good. It's pretty fast. If you go too high or very high, then you're going to go in the millions of polygons because you're going to create a lot of intermediary geometry to really stick to that original curve. And here we can see we have a medium tessellation. So now I can hide here my BREP, which is the CAD data is no longer here. And you can see here, this is the tessellated data. And I'm showing the wireframe to show the density. And you can see we're about 500,000 polygon, which is not good for our use case on the HoloLens. So now I can jump to optimize mesh. And there's two main strategies. There's optimize to quality, which allows you to define sort of like a relationship between the optimization and the end product by defining the quality. This is going to be the surfacing tolerance. So how far away to the original tessellation I can get in order to crunch down the poly count, or are close to the linear tolerance. So these are these type of lines, like these profile lines. Do I want to be, in this case, I'm going to be brute force, and I'm a little bit lazy. So I'm just going to say, hey, give me 200,000 polygon. I just tell Pixies that I want 200,000 and execute, and it's going to do its best to go through the whole model and crunch those numbers down to 200,000. Keep in mind on that number here. Boom, we're done. I'm at 200,000 polygon. There's really very little when it comes to visual difference between the two, but we did shave 250,000 polygon in just a couple of comments, right? So there's much more you can do here. You can remove holes. For example, here, if I focus on this, you can see that this part has a hole inside. The worst offender is this grill here, for example, which has, again, quite a bit of complexity. You don't need to keep this. You could bake this into maps. All of this can be done inside the optimization side of things. There's a remove hole. There's a hidden removal also, so I can hide the parts. For example, inside the engine here, you can see that we have some stuff, but in this case, we might be showing it later, but we could hide the parts, and you can see that there's multiple wheel options because this is a full model that we can configure. One last thing I want to show is you can also obviously create the UVs for your 3D model directly inside Pixies. But if I do something like before, when I want to optimize mesh and optimize for to target, Pixie Studio gives me this copy to Python code to clipboard, right? So I can click on this, that gives me a Python line of code, which I can then paste into the script editor. And then the next time I open this model, I can daisy chain all of my Python command, press play, and it's going to run my optimization in one go. I don't have to do it manually anymore. And then if I want to move this to the cloud or to a backend process in order to do it automatically with Pixie Scenario Processor, which is the server version of Pixie Studio, basically, I can also do this by exporting these Python scripts, and it will automatically do those data optimization. So here we go. So that's data optimization in a few seconds. There's a lot more on this. There's actually on the Learn Live, on the Unity Learn platform, there is a Pixies tutorial that's available for Studio, which is really great. And we link to the Microsoft documentation that goes through how to optimize the model with Pixie Studio for the HoloLens.
Jerome, also, I want to ask you this too. You made that crazy thing for me this time. Remember we made that mobile 360 ad thing. How many polygons was that? Was that 30,000? Do you remember? It was
yes,
something crazy. It was very crazy.
It was less than 30,000, and it looked.
Yeah,
good.
we got this asset. Jerome got this asset to less than 30,000, and I thought it looked questionable, but all the ads marketing people were like, "Oh my god, this is the most amazing thing ever."
And just here quickly for reference, so here I'm inside Unity Editor. I'm using Pixies plugin, which shows up like this, right? As a little menu, and I imported this from the CAD data. Though this is not from Pixie Studio, so I imported the SolidWorks asset directly inside Unity Editor, and then I just basically right-click, went to Pixies and Mesh and Decimate, right? And then did the decimate to target and set out to decimate to 200,000 polygons here, right? And that gave me this asset. So this is already optimized and ready to go. I just swapped some materials. Here, for example, you can see I updated the pivot on those wheels. Now they're centered, but you can see that those here are not, right? They're actually offsetted. Like this pivot should be in the center of the wheel. And as mentioned before, I can go to just here. There's a little pivot menu, move pivot. It asks me where I want to move it. Let's move it in the center of the bounding box here. And boom, there we go. And now it's done. And why would you do that, you ask? Well, because when I rotate the wheel, if I grab it in VR, I want the axis to be at the center. Here on this wheel, if I rotate it, you can see that it's offset, right? So it's rotating around the wrong center, and that might give you, weird behaviors if you try to do an assembly simulation. If you want to, for example, take apart a piece, it's not going to snap to the correct position. It's going to snap to the pivot, which is going to be offset. So this is something that you want to do regularly, and it's a nightmare to do normally because you have to like reparent or do it outside in Blender.
Yeah, right? And the configurator I did, all those photogrammetry came with various pivot points. So I had to create a parent node. So when I did that script where they rotate around the axis, they were all rotating around different points. So this is a really good use case for the move pivot.
Yeah, and here I think if I press play, this is using again visual scripting. So we'll cover that with interactivity next month. We love visual scripting. It's baked into Unity 2021.3 now. It comes by default. And here you can see I have a little on slider change, which is going to explode that model. So the explosion script is made also with visual scripting. The animation that you see here, this is done with Cinemachine, right? So no scripting there either. I'm going to add my stats, and you can see that just in a few minutes with a bit of visual scripting and Cinemachine, you can create interactive applications like these. So you go from CAD to interactive experiences in no time with all those tools, and you can see everything is getting exploded along the x-axis here, but that's something I can change with the visual script very easily. Yep, and I think last but not least, I have a scene here, let's not save, where I took your point cloud, Ben, your burger.
Oh, here. My burger.
Exactly. But what I did with Pixies is I went to import model, And let me go to my D workspaces, R2MB resources, because I'm super organized. And here I have my point cloud. So this is the point cloud that Ben gave me, which I converted. And here, when I import my point cloud, I can segment it. So in this case, it makes no sense because it's a small object that's always going to be visible at all times when I look at it. But if you're in the London scan, for example, that Ben created, if you see a couple of points, that whole point cloud needs to be pushed to the GPU. That's very complex, very costly. So what you can do here is you can segment your point cloud into chunks, into blocks, basically, which any blocks that's not visible on screen is going to be ignored. So you only render what's on screen. That can give you a lot of performance boost if you're immersed inside those point clouds. So highly recommend. And depending on the size, you decide how many blocks you want to create, right? And it does it automatically for you. And it comes in, it looks like it's still the same point cloud, but now it's broken down into chunks. And here what I did is I did LODs. I did give me 3 LOD levels. And if I go here, I have a little application called Mesh Info. And you can see this is the LOD1, which is about, what do I have here? 1 million polygon. This is LOD2. And you can see the object is changing in real time, right? So LOD1, 1 million. LOD2 is 160,000. LOD3 is 60,000. And
my brioche bun had 1 million points.
It did, yes, by default. It's crazy. But if I go here and then move back, you can see the, actually you can see here, sorry, my VCAM, you can see that, the various LODs are coming in. There's a little bit of snap if you really look closely, but you can barely see it. But when I'm here, the version that's rendered, if I show my stat, is only 60,000 polygon, right? If I move in here, then that's 160,000. Now we had 1 million. So when you get close, you get the full resolution. When you move away, you get really small. You can even optimize that even further if you want with what we call imposters in Pixies, which are basically 2D images that are crossed. So you can see them from afar and they look like a 3D model, but they're actually just 2 planes. But yeah, that's automatically just a couple of clicks and you optimize your point cloud so that when you're far away or if you don't need that much resolution, you can crunch those numbers directly inside Pixies. All right.
Which one tastes the best?
Definitely the million polygon one, I think.
Which one has more calories? Which is, I don't know if Jerome has seen I did a HoloLens banh mi tasting episode with that other scan. I'm trying to solve the problem of free samples in the metaverse.
And as we mentioned before, all the analytic tools are here, right? So you can find them here. And here, for example, I have the frame debugger, which I can enable. And that's going to give me all of, what is rendered during this pass, right? And I can see here every single draw call, everything that's happening in, for example, I have screen space ambient occlusion. Look at that, right? I have 4 instructions for screen space ambient occlusion. I don't need that in this case. It's an unlit asset, right, Ben?
You want to get the nooks and crannies of the burger and the cheese,
but it's not. It doesn't get any light, that material. So I could remove these from my render setting and save instructions. Look at that. See, 5 seconds and already we are optimizing things. All right, Ben, do you want to show a thing? I think you wanted to show this.
Yeah, I can jump over
the visual script.
I can show the visual scripting, and that's kind of something we're going to be going over next time. So just looking at this, so I made this configurator earlier, and this was one of the things we did in visual scripting, and we can take a look at a few things. Let's play it one more time before we go, and if those on the thing, I'll show the functionality one more time. So cool. Perfect. It's the simplest thing, and this is the great thing about bringing in your object. You can build this stuff really quick. I click on this. It's basically, you can see here, I'm just activating and deactivating my different models. I just parented them all underneath, and like Jerome said, they all have different pivot points, so I put them all under a thing here, and then I click on this and it just switches between the lighting environments. So we can go into that script real quick. So we'll go to the main thing, the objects. Is the first thing I did is I put a little script machine on here, and let's go edit graph. And it's just the simplest script in the world. On mouse over transform this. And I have a little, I hard coded the thing because I'm a bad programmer, but it's going to do 30 degrees every second is what this is set. So I get a little time dot delta time. Oh, and
So
I found that other thing. There's another thing.
You're not a bad programmer. These are called magic numbers, and they're a thing, right?
Look,
You don't have
Jerome,
to
I found it here. You can magically automatically do a time dot delta time. It's called per second. But you can see here, and as I hover over, it just, this is a thing. And one thing I want to emphasize here is none of this stuff has colliders. So I put a really big collider on all these things. So if my mouse goes over that little magic invisible box, it automatically goes here. On the other ones, I put another type of script. I did embedded graphs.
You should have told me, Ben, because I could have created colliders for you with Pixies plugin. We can generate colliders. Custom colliders which really conform to the shape but are optimized to your liking, so we can create physics colliders.
Cool. And so let's go to this other one real quick. So I put on the spheres because I'm putting my code on these as little UI things, little ghetto UIs. And this is what's called a state machine. And I think, this is the best analogy someone's ever explained to me. A state machine, it's like a fan, right? Like when you pull the string on the fan, it goes from off to low speed, to middle speed, to high speed. So every one of these is a state like that fan. So you can see as I click on this, it's going here. So if you go into these little state machines, all this is really doing is it says when I go into this state, click, activate this on. When I go off this state, turn it off. So I have a different state for each of these objects. So I have them all labeled A, B, C, D. And then in between, it says on mouse down. So when I click on mouse down, it transitions from one state to the next state and it goes around the circle. So if we go back to that, you can see as I click on, let's go to the object, you can see the little wires going and then the next box is highlighting. So we're now in object A, it's activating and deactivating. So it's the simplest coding ever. We're just going around. And then for the HDRIs, it's the exact same script. I literally just copied and paste and instead I did HDRI. So as I click on, it's basically just activating and deactivating these things. So I have three visual scripts. I actually have a video online if anyone wants to learn how to do this, and we'll show more of this in the future, but it's simple. And let's take a look at that London HDRI real quick. Let's go to, let's go here. Let me go back to the game view. Let me go back to that Star Wars helmet. Ooh, let's go to that. Ooh, yeah, let's go to this statue. And now we can go back to the London office because I think this is great. I like the blooming of the light coming in the window of the cloudy London day. But yeah, this is just all it really is. And we can, again, go around that pivot point.
State machines are really great also when you have multiple parts of your application that you want to control from a central location. Because right now, all Ben is doing is turning an object on and off. But for example, if you wanted also to turn a different HDRI, then you would add that inside each of the states. And now you control all of those various actors from one central location, which makes management a lot more straightforward. Or for example, if you wanted to put a label saying like, hey, this was captured with this app, that's the name of the statue or the name of the object, you could do so also with a state machine, which actually we did in our visual scripting workshop, I think last month, right? For the Learn Live.
Yeah, we did a little bit of that, and we'll do some more of it next month.
All right, let's just get the last couple of questions here then. Does Unity support Dolby Atmos?
Not directly, but there's like was it something WWise and Fmod? You can do it through those. And there's lots of different spatializers.
I think there's a Dolby plugin too for Unity.
Is there a Dolby plugin? And that's the thing, like again, with the package manager, the GitHub, someone has written it somewhere. So, but I think, was it Fmod and WWise both do Dolby Atmos?
Yeah, Atmos, they have packages for both Unity and the other U engine.
Is there a process to optimize the assets we create with LiDAR?
Yes.
Yeah, just go through Pixies. I mean, you can optimize in Blender. I mean, there's optimization tools and most stuff. Unity, if you want to optimize, you can use the Pixies plugin. There's a free trial. Or if you're a fancy industrial customer, like if you're at a big company, you have it. I mean, it's part of the enterprise.
You can build a house with a small hammer and a chisel, but if you want to have efficient tools, just check out Pixies. Free trials online for Pixie Studio or Pixies plugin, and actually you can. One great thing, if you have a pure point cloud, for example, you can tessellate that point cloud. You can turn it into a mesh with Pixies also, which if you don't want to keep the point cloud, for example, you want to tessellate it, you can do so, and then you can optimize that mesh. Or you can create a mesh with physics as a physics collider for the statue or for any point cloud, and then you can use those to have the object react realistically to physics, like bouncing balls or fall correctly.
Have you ever taken any of the volumetric stuff into the Pixies? That'd be interesting. Could we take?
Well, it depends because it's real time.
Take a volumetric
right?
video in and then make an alembic out of it. Let's take a really efficient format and make it as heavy as possible, and then we'll put it to a mobile phone.
All right. Again, let's not do that. Maybe I don't know. We'll see.
All right, awesome. Okay, just looks like we got more questions rolling in. Cool. Well, we'll try to lock it here at these last 6. Try to get through them.
Nice.
This audience member here got an opportunity to write their master's thesis on the topic VR training and remote support in the AEC industry. Do you have any input on how the job market is for VR and AEC?
Huge.
Booming. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean that's
if you put metaverse, I think there's like a tenfold increase in search for people to work for the metaverse. So no, VR and AEC is a really hot topic. There's again, it's very broad, immersive visualization in general. But go to our blog if you want.
Always been big. It's just the next level of that. And I think most of the stuff, whenever Jerome and I work with a big fancy company I can't name for legal reasons or any of them, they always want to learn VR and they always want to learn AR. I mean, they're doing exciting, companies are doing exciting things with these new tech. I mean, that's where the money's at, right? Like Jerome and I work with these big customers. If they can save 3 seconds on some manufacturing or construction thing, it adds up to billions and billions of dollars. We saw a presentation from an energy company that said, we did these things. And then the savings were XXX per energy thing. Globally, it was, what was it? I don't know, $1 trillion.
All jokes aside, for architectural visualization, we also have Reflect, which is a product dedicated to visualization, immersive visualization of architecture, both for AR and VR. Check it out. It's on our website. I can pop the link later.
Yeah, and it's like a virtual camera that looks into a building. And there's no difference between like an iPad virtual camera and a headset. It's the same thing. It's just one's a window, one's glasses, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely recommend checking out Reflected as well. Is combining meshes to reduce draw calls still important these days?
Always, optimization is critical. Yes, if you have especially static meshes, if you can combine them so they can be pooled. There used to be a limit with Unity at the number of vertices, which were pool per draw calls. That's been removed now. It's based on the hardware basically that we run on. So yes, pull together the meshes, the materials. If your meshes can share a material, even if they have different, use Atlas for like textures, for example, right? So Atlas, your albedo, your your normal maps, etc. Atlas them into one massive texture, and then use a library, for example, like what is it? What was I using? It will come back to me, but that will definitely reduce the draw calls.
Yeah, it looks like we just got 4 quick questions left here. How do I import materials from Blender that were created through the Blender shader editor?
I haven't done that yet. I'm not quite sure of what the Blender material format is, but I imagine you can convert it to some intermediate format.
FBX.
Like FBX, yeah. I'm not quite sure the specifics.
We are there is work with the Blender group, so hopefully we'll see.
We support the Blender Foundation. We have a whole team of working with Blender because I think everyone's really excited about the geometry nodes and the shading nodes and everything they're doing.
It's a fantastic tool.
Okay, any suggestions for runtime created geometry and how to deal with lights?
Yes, actually, you know what? If you want to see how the magic sauce is done, just check out the GLT Fast package, because that's what they do. So they have in there parsers for GLTF mesh data, which I'm sure you can use JSON to create. So in GLT Fast is all open source, so all that stuff should be in there. You can poke around the package and find how they generate those mesh nodes at runtime, because you can import GLTF data in the editor, but also at runtime. So they have all the parsers in there, 100%.
Okay, so what are the capabilities and limits of WebGL?
Ooh, great thing. Lots of work on WebGL, especially in 2022. That one, I was just playing around with it today. Capabilities, it's, URP and sort of similar to mobile development, right? We're still bound by the limitations of the browser, which means that you render on the client. So it depends on what the person have. If they have a Chromebook, which by the way, I think Chrome OS is now an official target of Unity, if I remember correctly. That was announced this week. But if you have a Chromebook versus, my 3090 PC, then, obviously what I can do with WebGL is going to vary depending on that, right? So that's keep in mind that you don't control what the user has when it comes to hardware. So you have to be mindful of this. And WebGL is URP, right? We don't support HDRP with WebGL. How about WebRTC? Quick question here. Yes, WebRTC is supported. There's actually, if you go to our GitHub, there's render streaming, it's called. It's a package which you can use that uses WebRTC.
That was Japan as well, wasn't it? Didn't they make
Unity
that?
Japan? Correct. Yeah.
Our Unity Japan office is like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory for Unity. It's crazy.
Yeah. Render streaming, full WebRTC support. There's other packages too. There's even like a Microsoft library for HoloLens, for example, because they have their own magic WebRTC source. So there's a few implementations you can use, but render streaming is definitely one that I recommend checking out.
Awesome. Okay, last two questions here. Any tutorials on Vulkan Renderer?
Vulkan Renderer, yes, of course. Well, Vulkan is now the de facto, it's the replacement of OpenGL. So yes, if you go to, I think there's either a few videos on our YouTube channel or there was a GDC talks on optimizing for Vulkan specifically, if I remember correctly.
If you go to I know there was like a Quest, Oculus Quest Vulkan talk at like one of the things. But I would say YouTube. I don't know any off the top of my head, but YouTube, Unity, Vulkan, and then just Vulkan in general. There's a couple books out now, and the Kronos group has a bunch of tutorials. I just know writing shaders in Vulkan is hard.
I remember buying a Getting Started with OpenGL book when I was a Flash developer, and then I started going through the book, and it was pretty beefy.
The Lego book. Dave Schreiner, who works at Unity, wrote that book. Well, the guy who wrote that book works in our team. Yeah.
And then I was like, what am I going to learn by the end of this book? And it was to do like a rotating cube. I'm like, that's not fast enough.
That was the guy who actually, Jerome, we sat behind him on the bus in Denmark to Hack Week. Remember the guy I was sitting with and you sat behind me? He wrote that book.
Yeah, I know. Actually, I was on his team for Hack Week. Oh, so right. He was on our team.
Yeah, he's a genius. But yeah, but now after struggling with OpenGL and all that stuff, I look at Vulkan and OpenGL is easy compared to Vulkan. Sorry.
Well, I mean, you don't have to worry too much as you shader graph.
All right. Sorry, we do need to start winding down on the questions here, but and one more add-on for Vulkan. Any commercial Vulkan shaders?
I haven't used any, not that I'm aware of. I think Vulkan is still pretty early in adoption. I mean, you can use it. It's picking up steam. Well, it's like USD. It's picking up steam.
Yeah, no, it's the default for Quest, etc. So it's
Lance Phillips is writing a book at the moment for PAX, so pre-order on Amazon.
There we go.
Okay, looks like we've got one last question here, and I think we know the answer to this as well. Is it possible to create an AR web product configurator with Unity?
So WebXR is not officially supported. There is a few experimental packages you can check out online. I think Mozilla had a few things. So it's something that we are looking at. There's no official support for it yet, but obviously, just like everything WebXR, it will come in time either by us or the community. There's a few things you can look at to get that working. Maybe USDZ also to get you models inside mobile devices, or GLTF, for example, they can run natively on a lot of devices also. So those are export format, but for full interactive applications, we don't have a straight to WebXR and WebAR, but that's something that's obviously of interest and is being asked every time we do something around XR. So we are looking at it. If there's a roadmap page, Google Unity roadmap, you go to the AR or the WebGL section, and then you just, if it's not there to upvote, just submit a card and make sure it gets upvoted. Engineers look at this and they'll help educate them to decide what do they prioritize when it comes to features. And put it on your
Just put the
social.
roadmap in the chat. Yeah.
Awesome.
Platforms roadmap. And it's
Get your cousin, sister, mother, everyone in your family to upvote, and then hopefully that get picked up.
All right, awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for all of your questions. That covers Q&A. And with that, unless you guys have any final thoughts, I'm going to say thanks very much for joining us, and we'll catch you next time. But yeah, I'll leave it to you, Jerome and Ben, for any final thoughts.
No, I had a blast. I hope you guys, I want to see what you guys make. So please scan stuff, build stuff, share it, tweet us, tag us, tweet R2MV. We'd love to see what the community makes.
Yeah, and contribute to open source projects. Make sure to start them if you like them. A lot of what we showed is developed by often single individuals, passion projects, and they're fantastic whether they work at Unity or not, right? So support to the community, support each other. That's the thing, right? These are hard times. So love you all. Stay safe. And we'll see you next week if you want to join us on Learn Live, right, Ben?
Go
what are
over
we doing
to
next week?
It's a different thing. It's in the resources. Yeah, we're gonna go animation, and we'll teach like how to manually, create states and do state graphs. So when you want to put visual scripting together, you can explode stuff. And
can I do tweens? Can I do some tweens with visual scripting for animation?
Sure.
Okay, I'll show that.
Perfect. All right. Yeah, we'll be back next month as well for the next episode of this series as well. So yeah, till then, take care, everyone, and we'll see you next time.